There's something happening inside USCIS RFEs and denials that almost nobody is talking about. An invisible framework is resurfacing. A standard that was officially killed 10 years ago is quietly being resurrected. And at the exact same time, requirements from an entirely different visa category are being smuggled into the analysis in EB-2 and NIW cases. Petitioners are losing their cases because they are being judged by adjudicators playing fast and loose with the law. This is Prong 3. And the stakes could not be higher here. 2/3 of National Interest Waiver petitions are being denied right now. Prong 1, with its national importance component, and Prong 2, with its question of whether you're well positioned to advance the proposed endeavor, get most of the attention when it comes to NIW discourse. They're the focal points of strategy discussions. Petitioners prepare arguments about national importance. They prepare arguments about being well positioned. But Prong 3, often even USCIS seems to treat Prong 3 as an afterthought in RFEs or denials. The structure and page allocation of your specific RFE or denial letter probably reflect that. You might have 5 pages dedicated to Prong 1, 5 pages devoted to Prong 2, and a page and a half for Prong 3. And sometimes that page and a half seems to exist solely to remind you that the government has an unlimited supply of word salad, which, having read hundreds of RFEs, I can confirm it does. Not enough people focus on Prong 3. Not enough pro se petitioners to be sure, but also not enough people in my community, immigration lawyers. And that's a problem. Because what's happening in Prong 3 right now is important, it's compelling, it's clear evidence that many adjudicators just aren't following the law. They're following something, but it's not the current law. In part, they're following something older. They're following what was supposed to be did. Let me set this up for you. Danazar is the controlling precedent. It's a 2016 decision, and for all intents and purposes, it governs every single national interest waiver case. Danazar is not a suggestion. It is not a guideline. It is the law. USCIS officers are required to apply it. Required. Now, Danazar replaced an older case called NYS DOT. That case was the standard from 1998 to 2016. For 18 years, that case governed how NIW cases were decided. But NYS DOT had a problem. It required petitioners to prove that they were virtually irreplaceable, that they would benefit the national interest substantially more than available U.S. worker, that they had something no American worker could offer. In practice, that frequently meant if qualified American workers existed, you weren't special enough for the waiver. Denied. And if none existed, then labor certification, the process where an employer needs to check whether an American is available, would be an easy process. It would be just peachy for you. So you didn't need the waiver. Denied. You were damned if they existed, and damned if they didn't. And by they, I mean U.S. workers. available US workers. The standard wasn't hard to meet. That's an understatement. It was basically designed not to be met. Perhaps that's a bit of an overstatement, but NYS DOT was broken. So in 2016, BAAO, the Administrative Appeals Office, the body that issues controlling precedent cases for NIW adjudication, issued Danazar. And the very first sentence of Danazar's discussion of Prong 3 begins with these wise words. Unlike the third prong of NYS DOT, the AAO wanted to be absolutely clear. This, Danazar, is not a refinement. This is a replacement, a new framework, a different standard. The AAO also wrote in language worth memorizing if you're an immigration nerd. This new prong, referring to the third prong in Danazar, unlike the third prong of NYS DOT, does not require a showing of harm to the national interest or a comparison against US workers in the petitioner's field. Clear, direct, difficult to misunderstand, and I want to be precise about this by anyone with access to the case text, which is everyone, and a reasonable familiarity with English. And yet, NYS DOT is apparently not did as it relates to the third prong. Here's how the third prong is supposed to be judged under Danazar. Prong 3 under Danazar asks a question whether, on balance, it would be beneficial to the United States to waive the job offer and the labor certification requirements. On balance, it's a balancing test. Two things on a scale. On one side of the balancing scale, the national interest in requiring job offers and labor certifications to protect the domestic labor supply. On the other side, the national interest in the benefit of your contributions. The adjudicator's job is to weigh those two sides against each other. That is their job. In Danazar, being generous, being clear, being everything NYS DOT wasn't, even hands the adjudicator a list, 3 factors. Things the officer can consider. One of those is this, and this one is quite important. Whether the United States would benefit from your contributions even if qualified US workers are available. Even if, even assuming. Sit with that. Because that one phrase, even assuming that other qualified workers are available, that is the AAO taking the US worker comparison, the beating heart of NYS DOT, the NYS DOT requirement that you show you would benefit the national interest substantially more than an available US worker, that's a comparison. The requirement that you had something that no American worker could offer, a comparison. Taking that beating heart and throwing it out the window on purpose, in writing. Weigh the factors listed in Danazar. If the scale tips toward waiving, you win. That's how Prong 3 is supposed to work. However, here's what's actually happening in many RFEs and denials right now. Many adjudicators are using language they know or should know belongs to NYS DOT. But they're disguising it. They're using new words, different phrasing. But the framework underneath is the same old one from NYS DOT, and that is unlawful. And I don't use that word unlawful lightly. I don't. I mean, I could have used concerning, to be sure. I could have used problematic. I could have used a practice that, when charitably interpreted, reflects a remarkable misunderstanding of the applicable legal standard. I could have used that one too. I used unlawful because I meant unlawful. So you may see language like this in your RFE. The argument lacks substantial evidence that the beneficiary's work is indispensable or provides an irreplaceable benefit that surpasses available local qualifications. Irreplaceable, huh? Surpasses available local qualifications, you say? Those phrases aren't particularly subtle. They reference a comparison against U.S. workers. It is precisely the comparison Danazar said Prong 3 no longer requires. It's the comparison Danazar took and threw out the window. And did I mention Danazar is the current law that USCIS adjudicators are required by regulation to follow? The RFEs, the current RFEs, their standard, the standard that they intimate, looks quite familiar. It's NYS DOT wearing a fake mustache. Personally, I find the fake mustache completely, utterly ridiculous. It's a total grooming catastrophe. It's an existential cry for help, strictly localized to the upper lip. And most important, I know who's wearing it. So many adjudicators, they're no longer performing the prescribed balancing test, the test Danazar mandates. Instead, they're asking NYS DOT questions under a Danazar label. Unsurprisingly, applying NYS DOT instead of Danazar makes it more difficult for you to get an NIW. This is no accident. If you want to know what kind of headspace some of these adjudicators are in, but to be clear, not all adjudicators, you need to realize stuff like that is not accidental. You need to puncture any lingering illusion you might have about what kind of game you're playing. Many of them aren't playing fairly. You might think you're stepping into a regulated boxing match where the opponent is the adjudicator. But the match is regulated, at least. There are padded gloves, clean rules, a referee in the ring, ensuring good sportsmanship, and enforcing a strict ban on low blows. You think. Often, you would be thinking this incorrectly. Did I mention 2/3 of cases are being denied? Get these expectations out of your head. And I don't want to be too preachy, but I would encourage you to get these expectations out of your head. This often, not always, but often isn't a boxing match. It's a street fight, or a boxing match come street fight. And if you watch the fight tape of your opponent, you see dirty moves clear as day. Because some adjudicators aren't just breaking the rules of the ring or the rules of sportsmanship. They're performing unlawful moves. They're slipping knives into their boxing shorts. And I realize that might sound hyperbolic, but here's one of those knives. In case you don't believe me, I'll show you just this one, not because it's the only one, but because it's fairly quick and it's also one of the sharpest knives and one likely to be sticking out of your case. Adjudicators will sometimes take requirements from the EB-1A extraordinary ability category, the visa classification for those at the very top of their field, and quietly apply them to Prong 3, or apply them in Prong 3 of an NIW case. I mean, this is their fight tape. You'll see sneaking into RFEs language like, well, some RFEs will say something like, without proof of critical acclaim or distinctive accomplishments recognized within the field, the claim does not meet the threshold necessary for exemption, the threshold necessary to get an NIW. Did you hear that phrase, critical acclaim? Critical acclaim has wandered into the wrong arena here. It belongs to the EB-1A world. The word critical acclaim, or the phrase critical acclaim, appears nowhere in Danazar. It appears nowhere in the policy manual's discussion of the National Interest Waiver. Demanding critical acclaim in an NIW case is like a city health inspector visiting a loved neighborhood takeaway, one of those delightful, shabby, tiny places that's been around at least 20 years. One of those places that's an institution in your neighborhood. So the health inspector visits it and fails it. Why? Because it didn't merit a Michelin star. What? Michelin star? You're a health inspector. Why are you judging whether this restaurant, takeout joint really, deserves a Michelin star? That's a different test done by different people for different reasons, to get in front of a different type of audience, an audience of foodies, not an audience of people who can't be bothered to cook dinner for themselves a night or two. It's a similar situation here. The health inspector should have just figured out, is the food going to kill you? Not ask a bunch of other questions that are not relevant. It is very much beside the point whether you, as an NIW petitioner, can satisfy EB-1A standards, or at least it should be, unless you decide to one day apply for an EB-1A classification. Applying EB-1A standards to your case is a low blow. It's a knife to the gut of your case, and it's blatantly unlawful. And I could get carried away on EB-1A standard importation on that subject alone. But unless you are a turbocharged immigration nerd like me, you probably don't want to hear all of that. So let me just say this. The EB-1A importation, like the NYS DOT resurrection, proves the point that many adjudicators are no longer running a neutral balancing test. They are doing something far dirtier than that. Step back, and the pattern is hard to miss. Some adjudicators seem to be working overtime to RFE and deny cases. And some of the moves that they pull, like the move to pull the Danazar standard backward into the graveyard of NYS DOT, or the move to pull the Danazar standard sideways into the land of the hyper-restrictive EB-1A classification, are unacceptable. Still, there are other moves that they pull that I haven't even mentioned here. But none of the moves that they pull are consistent with the actual Prong 3 balancing test, which is awful. So after you file your EB-2 and NIW petition, you may find that you're not in a fair contest. You're not in the contest that the policy manual describes. You may find yourself in a street fight. Most pro se petitioners and many general immigration attorneys lose because they build their case for the clean, theoretical boxing match described or intimated by Danazar or the policy manual. But what I'm trying to say is they expect a fair referee. They expect a fair opponent. They expect the rules to be followed perfectly. And then they walk into the room and they get sucker punched. A petition built to succeed in this environment anticipates the dirty moves. Your petition has to make the true legal standard so loud and your alignment with them so unassailable that if an officer wants to throw an EB-1A requirement or a did NYS DOT rule at you, they know that they will have to fight to do it or fight to walk away after throwing something they shouldn't throw at you. A petitioner who reads only the policy manual or Danazar won't see the need for this, because the problem isn't what isn't what USCIS claims it's doing on paper. The problem is what they're actually doing in practice. If you want a case built to withstand the street fight, the sucker punch, the low blow, write to me. My law firm handles these cases every day. We know fight tape. We know the moves. Contact information is in the description. And if this was useful, subscribe. There's more on the way.